Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at Elemental Shaman. In this video, I'm going to be walking through all the different abilities and passives the Elemental Shaman has, walking through all the talents row by row, looking for in-row choices as well as multiple row synergies. After that, I'll show you a bit of the rotation, a bit of the gameplay, again, just on a dummy, so that's it. After that, I'll talk a bit about the stats, what stats will work better or work worse, not against stat rankings per se, but just a sense of how the stats are going to interact with the spec. After that, I'll give my overall thoughts and summary for the spec and how I see it playing out in Battle for Azeroth. So first, we're going to, of course, start with our passives here. You still have reincarnation, so again, you have your immunity every 30 minutes. You have your mastery, which is elemental overload. So your lightning bolt, lava burst, and chain lightning cast have a chance to trigger a second cast on the same target for 85% of normal damage and generate less maelstrom. Less maelstrom just means half. So whatever it is, it's about half. In some cases, not half in others. And again, I'll mention that what they are exactly here in a second. Lava Surge, passive. Flame Shock damage over time has a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Lava Burst and cause your next Lava Burst to be instant. Now, Fulmination actually kind of tells you the Maelstrom generation amounts. So Lightning Bolt has 6. Again, the less would be half of that. Lava Burst, again, is 8. Again, half of that would be the less. Now, for the Chain Lightning of 3, I believe half is 2. So again, that's actually not a little bit more than half. That's what the less means from the mastery. Element of Fury, so your damaging crits deal 250% damage instead of the usual 200% damage, so your crits are more powerful. You can already see how that's going to benefit the value of crit. Wind Shear is your interrupt. Water Walking, of course, still here. Tremor Totem is baseline. It's 1 minute cooldown. It can remove fear, charm, and sleep effects. Thunderstorm, again, calls down damage, but also does a slow to the area. Purge removes a beneficial magic effect from a target. Lightning Bolt, again, is your single target, generates 6 Maelstrom. Lava Burst, again, is a 1.7 second cast, 8 second recharge. Now, again, I'm talented into multi-charges. Normally, you'd only have 1 charge of this. I'm talented to Echoes, so I have 2 charges. Hex, Healing Surges here. Ghost Swift. Frost Shock. Now, interesting about Frost Shock is, again, still instant, but its damage is actually relatively close to that of Lightning Bolt. So it's 625 versus 699. Again, the numbers will change, of course, as you level and as you gain gear, but the spell coefficients are relatively close. So you'll be losing too much damage in movement, and there's actually even a talent to make Frost Shock a better ability in some cases, some instances, than something like Lightning Bolt, if you need that extra movement. Flame Shock's a dot. Again, it must be on the target for your Lava Burst to have a guaranteed crit. So again, it will always crit if the target is affected by Flame Shock. 18 second, it does Pandemic. 6 second cooldown. Fire Elemental calls the Elemental down. Last 30 seconds on a 2.5 minute cooldown. When it's down, Flame Shock also generates 3 Maelstrom when it does damage over time, so every tick. Farsight still here. Earthquake, 75 Maelstrom cost, so quite expensive there. Causes the earth within 8 yards of the target location to tremble, dealing AoE damage, sometimes knocking down enemies. Earthbind Totem still here for that slow. Earthshock is 60 Maelstrom, so again, instantly shocks the target with the force, dealing a bunch of nature damage. Earth Elemental is here. Again, it still does its normal taunt, but again, it's there for a minute on a 5 minute cooldown. Does very slight melee damage. Cleanse, you have Chain Lightning, of course, as your AoE. Generates 3 Maelstrom per target. Affects a total of 5 targets. Capacitor Totem is also here baseline. It is a, after 2 seconds, it'll get a AoE stun for 3 seconds. Bloodlust, of course, is still here. Astral Shift, take less damage for 8 seconds. Pretty decent DR there. Astral Recall, of course, and then Ancestral Spirit is your single target battle res. All right, let's dive into this talent tree. 15, we have Earthshock. Sorry, Exposed Elements. Earthshock now increases the damage of your next Lightning Bolt on the target by 100%. So yeah, I mean, that's fine. The only issue, I think, is that Earthshock's not going to be happening that often. So while you're doubling up the damage of Lightning Bolt, which is cool, I just don't see the value of it as much as the other 2 talents here. I could be, of course, wrong. Echo, Lava Burst has 2 charges. Effects that would reset its cooldown now simply just grant it a charge. This helps in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, I think it actually can help smooth and in a little bit kind of de-hectic the rotation a bit, because you're not instantly trying to not waste procs by making sure you're always using that free Lava Burst right away. You can let it proc and wait a little while and be okay. So I do like this. I think it definitely gives you a bit of buffer zone. Again, if you're moving or something like that, you're not going to worry about, wasting the cooldown. In general, adding charges does help a lot when it comes to just smoothing out rotations. Elemental Blast is interesting. So again, 1.7 second cast, like every Elemental Shaman ability is, with my haste levels. 12-second cooldown. So you deal elemental damage. Again, it's more damage than you're going to get out of a lightning bolt. Again, your Lava Burst is going to always crit, so that's going to be more damage than Elemental Blast, though Elemental Blast's base damage is higher. But what it does is it increases your crit, haste, or mastery by 91 for 10 seconds. Now, for reference at this level, so you can see the idea, 300 haste was 18%. So we're talking about 6% haste there. We're talking about something like 10/3, whatever that would end up being percent. Crit, so again, decent amount here, probably 3-4% extra crit. 5% versatility if it procs verse, again, mastery. Can't proc verse, so good. Just crit, haste, or masteries. But again, the 91's a pretty decent amount. The point I'm trying to get across here. So it seems small to us now because of the numbers we've been used to, but 91 is a pretty decent amount. Again, this is going to scale up, by the way, when you get to 120. And again, you're going to be getting a decent percentage out of this. Now, the cool thing is that it can overload. And when it overloads, you'll actually get 2 different stacks. And every time I've gotten it, it's been 2 different buffs. So if you have a crit buff, I don't think you can actually proc then the haste buff. And I believe it's also possible with something, again, like high voltage. It's not doing more like this, but the idea being that you can get those procs, and that would, of course, help increase your extra stats. So you can actually get 2 different stats up for 10 seconds. Now, it's not 100% uptime. It's 12-second cooldown. But basically, every 12 seconds you hit it, does change the rotation up a bit. Interesting talent, but again, I do think that Echo's going to be the best talent here. I'm just going to assume. I could, of course, be wrong, but Elemental Blast is at least somewhat interesting. 30, we have Aftershocks. Your spells have a chance to refund the Maelstrom spent on them. So again, this is somewhat, I believe, similar to the kind of gambling build legendary. I find it's okay. I think that the other 2 talents are actually more consistent, and I personally would prefer the consistency. Now, for AoE, this is the best one just because of how expensive Earthquake is, and being lucky and getting that on Earthquake can really help your AoE. So that could be more of the focus or direction you would go for an AoE build. You have Master of the Elements. Casting Lava Burst increases the damage of your next Nature or Frost spell by 20%. This is actually really nice, especially with Echo, because you get more Lava Bursts. You're kind of getting them out relatively consistently. You're not wasting procs. And you can basically almost always line it up so that every Earthshock is 20% harder hitting, which is pretty good. Again, that's going to make it like a 4,000 nature damage hit. That's a pretty strong single target hit. And this just basically allows you to buff your best spell. So nothing wrong with that. Totem Mastery, I think this one's interesting just because it makes you feel like the old shaman, because you actually put down totems like you used to. And so the totems, generate 1 Maelstrom every second, increases the chance for Lightning Bolt and Chilling to trigger Elemental Overload by 5%, increases Flame Shot damage over time by 10%, and increases your haste by 2%. So you get all of those things from these things. They last 2 minutes, and then you can use them again. Again, there's no cost on them, just a GCD. So I think that's kind of cool to be able to kind of take that and have those totems up. .45 row, you have Spirit Wolf. I don't think it's a very good talent. Basically, when you're in Ghost Wolf, you gain 5% movement speed and damage reduction every second, but you have to wait 4 seconds to get that max. So, Earth Shield could be nice. Again, protects the target with an Earthen Shield, increasing your healing on them by 10%. That's not going to be used too much. But again, it then also heals them whenever they take damage. There's 9 charges. So you, I guess, could take this and next to use it on yourself, or of course use it on somebody else. Static charge. This reduces the cooldown of capacitor totem by 5 seconds for each enemy it stuns. Maximum of 20 seconds or 4 targets. So again, basically turns it from a 1 minute into a 40-second cooldown. 60, we have high voltage, so lightning bolt and chain lightning have a chance to cause a second elemental overload, so it's half of the normal chance, which it gives whatever your mastery chance is. So whenever your mastery is cut in half, you get that chance to get a second overload as well. It can be very strong for AoE with something like chain lightning, because it procs off all of those. And again, with something like Stormkeeper, you can even kind of like pair those together, and that's a very powerful AoE. Storm Elemental, this replaces Fire Elemental. So again, you get a Storm Elemental that hurls a gust of wind damage for the same 30 seconds, 2.5 minute cooldown. The difference here is that instead of getting the Flame Shock damage, what you're doing is you're getting, each time you cast a Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, the cast time of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning is reduced by 3 seconds, stacking up to 20 times. For a single target, this could be okay, and again, it actually does have okay synergy with Primal Elementalist, which I'll talk about later. AoE, though, I think it definitely has some power there, because again, when this is up, you're going to be able to get more Chain Lightnings out, which of course is going to help with that AoE. Liquid Magma Totem, so summons a totem the target location that hurls liquid magma at a random nearby target, dealing 208 fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards. So another kind of 1 minute, put it down, does AoE damage type of an ability. All of these, of course, in a way, help AoE. These two, of course, actually have better single target synergy than Liquid Magma Totem does. So again, you'll probably take one of these two for non-AoE fights, and then for Mythic Plus, you have the possibility of taking any of these three. 75 is Nature's Guardian. So when your health is brought below 35%, you instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. Can occur more than once every 45 seconds. It basically gives you an extra like 20% like life in a way. I believe, again, the way this works, and again, I haven't been able to confirm this on my own, but the way that I've understood this to be is, let's say you're at 40% health, and you take what would have been a 50% of your health pool damage. So you take that damage hit, but you instantly get healed for 20%. Because again, any time that you take damage that would bring you below 35% health, it instantly will heal you for 20% of your maximum health. So that would have bumped your health up to 60%. You would then, of course, still take your 50% of your health hit and still leave you with like 10%. So again, that's pretty decent for extra survivability in Mythic Plus or in Raid. Ancestral Guidance, 2 minute cooldown. For the next 20 seconds, 25% of your damage and healing is converted to healing, and up to 3 nearby injured party or raid members. This is kind of like the Shadow Priest Vampiric Embrace-esque type of thing. 2 minute cooldown. 20% of your damage is not insignificant. So again, that's not a bad talent. Windrush Totem, 2 minute cooldown. You get a totem on the ground that increases any ally who passes within 10 yards by 60% for 5 seconds. That's actually quite nice as well. 90, you have Earth Enrage. Your damage spells incite the earth around you to come to your aid, dealing nature damage to your most recently attacked target. This one's fine. I just found it to be a little bit under-tuned in my testing. Again, numbers, of course, might change, but at the current level, and we're pretty close to the end here at 110. Again, it's not at 120, but the other two talents, I think, were a bit better tuned. It is a nice, simple passive, like Set and Forget. Primal Elementalist is also kind of Set and Forget, but it's interesting in one specific way. So your Earth, Fire, and Storm Elementals are drawn from Primal Elementals, so they're more powerful than the regular Elementals. They do more damage, and they have an additional ability, and you gain direct control over them. So for example, if I summon up the Fire Elemental here, I actually get a pet bar. So you see you have your normal Fire Blast, but you also have Immolate, which burns the enemy and then inflicts additional fire damage every 2.5 seconds for 21 seconds. And then you also have Meteor, that again is you have to kind of use it. So you'd probably want a macro to kind of have this somewhere on your bar, but you can basically use this, and it calls a Meteor down, deals damage on all enemies within 10 yards of your target. So again, it's kind of nice. The other really nice thing about this is you can actually turn the taunt off of Earth Elemental with this. So if I summon Earth Elemental, you'll see that taunt is normally always active. I can turn it off so that the target will not taunt, and then basically just use it to stun and as a personal cooldown. So it gives you Hardened Skin, which gives you a damage reduction of 40% for 10 seconds. So it comes on you as well as the Elemental. So again, it's giving you extra DR, and you have the ability to pull it out and not use the taunt part. You can send on the target. It won't do a lot of damage. It does last for a whole minute, though. So you can send it out in a fight where you know you're going to be taking damage, and then have that extra 40% DR available to you which again is quite nice. Now, all of these extra abilities here are designed to only be able to be used once per call, so you can't ever use them more than once. But again, it's kind of nice. The last talent is Ice Fury, so it hurls a frigid ice at the target, dealing frost damage and causing the next 4 frost shocks to deal 100% increased damage. It also generates 15 Maelstrom, so you use this every 30 seconds as a replacement for Lightning Bolt, and then basically Frost Shock is going to be doing more damage than Lightning Bolt. So, for example, if there's a part of fight where, again, you kind of know movement is coming, you can use the Ice Fury and then kind of keep those charges. Of course, you're going to want to use them before the 30 seconds is up so you don't waste the Frost Shocks. But you can basically use it, and then your next 4 Frost Shocks, if you have to use them to move somewhere, will actually be doing more damage than your Lightning Bolt. So you can either use them immediately as just like a replacement in the rotation, or if you know there can be movement, you could save them for that point in time. So I think it's kind of a nice talent, helps that the movement damage synergy. So yeah, 100 row, unlimited power. When your spells cause an elemental overload, you gain 2% haste for 10 seconds. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration. So this stacks up on its own, and again, once you get the first proc, you have 10 seconds to get the procs up, and then after 10 seconds, it goes off, and then your next overload will proc it again for 10 seconds. Stormkeeper is a 1-minute cooldown. It is a cast, so you charge yourself with lightning, causing the next 2 lightning bolts or chain lightnings to be instant, and trigger an elemental overload on every target. So clearly this is a bit better for chain lightning than it is for lightning bolts. It can still be, of course, used for single target. I just think that the other options are a bit more competitive here. Moving on to Ascendance. 3-minute cooldown, you turn into a Flame Ascendant, replacing Chain Lightning with Lava Beam, and it removes the cooldown on Lava Burst and increases the damage of Lava Burst by an amount equal to your critical strike chance. So whatever your crit is, that's the percent that Lava Burst will be increased by. It also has no cooldown. So again, you can basically just be using it as you want, basically, right? So again, you're going to dump through those charges and just kind of be able to cast it over and over again, which is quite nice for those 15 seconds. So that is the talent tree. In general, I think there's some decent choices here, some interesting talents. Again, I'm not honestly sure what the meta build will end up being, but again, I think there's some decent choice if they can balance them properly, right? If the talents can be balanced properly, there's some interesting choices in each row. There's no row where I'm kind of like, this is the clear winner. If anything, maybe Echo in that row. I really don't think Exposed Elements is good. I could, of course, be very wrong. Maybe it would pass. Maybe it would synergize with Storekeeper because you could guarantee a stronger Lightning Bolt that then also does Overload. Again, I'm not honestly sure. I do think Echo is really strong. Elemental Blast is fun, but I just don't know if it's going to be able to compete with the extra charges, and it's the ease that causes that are in the rotation. It's far more forgiving, I think. I wish Totem Mastery was a better talent. I do think Master of the Elements, though, is really, really strong, just because it would be nice to be able to have those totems back and have less shaman complaining about where my totems go. Let's take a look here at what some gameplay might look like, or some rotation at least would look like. So, of course, you're going to always be keeping up your Flame Shock at all times. And then you're basically just building until you can use Earth Shock. Now, the nice thing here is that you do have a bit of a buffer. So, again, you don't have to use it immediately at 60. You can, of course, let it go a little bit beyond that if you have like one extra GCD that's going on and not be too punished by that. Now, I'm being extremely unlucky here. Oh. My elemental wasn't doing any damage. That's fine. But again, not getting a lot of procs here, which is a bit of a bummer. But that is going to be the one downside. There's a proc of Elemental Shaman, is that while even without that, their playstyle's fine, they're highly dependent on the procs to really liven up their Maelstrom game to be able to kind of get a lot of good damage out. So if you're a proc-based class and you're just getting a bit unlucky, that's a bit of a shame. Now, again, I've had a couple of pulls where I had a million just lava bursts back to back to back to back. Get a lot of Maelstrom for that. And then you can, of course, use it on your Earth Shocks. But again, as I mentioned, you should be trying to pair up a Lava Burst with Earth Shock, like so, because that's just going to guarantee that extra damage going out on that. But yeah, it's a very simple rotation, but I do worry that it's going to be a class where you're going to feel bad. And what I mean by that is if you get unlucky, right? You could be doing great, right? Have at the very beginning of the fight, have a bunch of procs, you're feeling on top of the world, top of the meters, and then you just fall because their base damage without any procs, as it should be, is a bit low, right? It's a class that's designed on you procking, and it's kind of built in the idea that, yeah, you might get it lucky, and we don't want you when you get lucky to be, in super god mode. So it's tuned to have relatively, statistical luck, and when you get what should happen below statistical luck, it's going to feel bad because your damage can definitely be lower. And so you're going to have a higher variance of your DPS from pole to pole. I'm sure, again, if any of you have seen, like Simcraft's information about the damage windows, right? How big the damage windows are in the sims, they're kind of the minimum and the maximum value for a sim, the range, basically, the variance, if you will. Elemental's going to be up there because if you get lucky, you're going to do great. If you don't get lucky, you'll do okay. But their damage seems to be in tune with what I'm seeing from other classes, again, in this same realm. So, again, they're not horrible. They feel okay, but that's it. They're just okay. Stats, of course, crits can be super important. Again, not only if you take Ascendance, does it help there, but the fact that your crits crit for more is going to be very important, and the fact that you're guaranteed crit on Lava Burst is a weird thing, because normally when you're guaranteed crit, that actually reduces the value of crit. But for everything else, you want to crit because your crits are going to be doing more damage. And again, if you take Ascendance, crits then going to, of course, increase the damage of your Lava Burst, which of course will be very helpful. So crit will definitely be a very important talent here. Haste, again, is one of the only other ways to get a real direct sense and consistency of damage here. The more haste you have, the faster your ticks of Flame Shock are, which means the more Maelstrom you get when Fire Elemental's up. Again, a lot of things kind of proc you haste as well, so that's nice. The more haste you have, the bigger those procs of percent haste will help increase. Versatility, it's just going to be flat damage. And then Mastery is, again, it's the interesting thing because, again, it's a chance, right? So increasing your Mastery is a chance. And anytime you've had a stat where, again, it's something like this where you have a chance to do something, those always find like a window. There's a point of like diminishing returns that tend to happen with those, to where increasing your Mastery by another 5% doesn't do as much for you as increasing your haste by 5%, let's say, or your verse by 2% or 3%. So it's one of those things where we'll have to kind of wait and see, obviously, but that's how I feel the stats are going to play out. Crit definitely be important. Haste going to have good some value. Verse is going to come down to scaling. Probably not the best stat. Mastery, again, is one of those ones where I have a feeling there's going to be a range that Mastery is going to feel good at, where you want to get to a certain point so you have enough procs, because, again, if you're not getting these procs, it does feel bad. But at the same time, if you are, if you have too much of it, then it doesn't help you as much, right? The more you have, once you get to a certain percentage point, you're kind of like losing the extra kind of value there, because from what you can feel and what the fights actually play out, you're gaining not as many procs there. But so yeah, crit, haste, Mastery definitely going to have some value there. Versatility probably lagging behind. So I've mentioned a number of my overall thoughts already. Again, just in summary, I really think that it's fine, right? That's only the best word I can think of for Elemental Shamans. It's fine. It feels fine. The rotation makes sense. It's a very simple kind of idea. You build and then you spend. You have a dot to keep up. You have a cooldown. It's kind of nice that you can control the cooldown with that one talent now. I do think there are ways of livening up the rotation. So things like Ice Fury and Elemental Blast add some new rhythms to the mix here a little bit. That I think is quite nice. Again, there's other talents you can be taking as well. Storm Elemental changes up how that feels when the Elemental is out. You have some talents, of course, for AoE type builds. So there are ways of livening it up, but again, we'll have to wait and see what ends up being the best talent setup, whatever the Sims, of course, say what Moti will go with. But there seems to be a decent number of choices here for if you do want to play around and see. Hopefully Blizzard tunes the class well and you don't have these wild swings where they have dead talents. No one wants a dead talent. So if you like the video, go ahead and give me a like. If you dislike the video, go ahead and dislike. If you have any comments you want to leave, please go ahead and leave them down there in the comment section. If you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe. Again, I have almost every single class up except for Priest now. So Enhancement Shaman is coming up next, and then I have the Priest following that. So again, almost every class is up there. So if you want to see how classes are on the beta, go ahead and check out my channel. A bunch of videos up on that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my future videos.